Hey, Johnny,
Hey, how's it going?
you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, Joni Bedwell, Powers Public Library.
Thank you. You ladies want to come up to the table so
We got plenty of space.
Sure. People that are here. So. And do you want to tell us who you are while you're here?
Claire Martin, Coquille Library.
Sandy Stoffer, Powers Library Board. Hi, Joni.
All right.
Hi, Sandy.
Do we have any agenda changes? So moving on, let's entertain approval of the minutes from the February 27th, 2024 meeting.
I move we approve the minutes from the February 27th, 2024 meeting. I'll second.
You get that?
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Like the motion. Good. Old business. Anybody have any old business?
We've been
Okay.
focusing on the distribution.
Yeah. Okay, moving on, discussion of the distribution consultant. So we've got.
I want to go on
direction.
record saying that I don't think that should have been done, and I think it was highly unprofessional of Coquille to do so.
Did you want?
To go to the Board of Commissioners and circumvent the CLB, we are there in that place, in that position for a reason, and to go directly to the commissioners violates our bylaws.
Well, I will comment that it is stated in the bylaws that it's responsibility for this library board to recommend a distribution formula. So if we go through this process for getting something different or a recommendation, it's still up to, I would think, up to this body to approve that or forward it then to the Board of Commissioners rather than going to the commissioners directly from a committee.
Yeah, that would be my understanding that the consultant should report to the board and the board would recommend.
Yes, I think that other than paying for it, Coquille should be out of the equation. Coquille has to pay for it because they committed to that. They pay the bill, we deal with the consultant. Stacy should be the liaison for the consultant.
So John Sweet asked the mayor to pay for, the mayor of Coquille to pay for phase one. That he did not feel it was ESO's responsibility. If it goes any further than that, it will have to be discussed. John Sweet also wanted the CLB to report to the BOC in 6 months from April 23rd.
Right, I'm aware of that, but this whole thing needs to go through the CLB, and Stacy is our liaison. And so the contract, in my opinion, the contract should be between the CLB and the consultant. I believe that all of the liaison work is between Stacy as our representative for the CLB and the consultant. Every bit of communication regarding this from now on goes through Stacy as the CLB's representative. Coquille should have nothing to do with it any longer other than paying the bill.
Okay. I would kind of like to say that the minutes say that Commissioner Maine asked Help Fund and Mayor Flattery said that they will fund it. And that was in regard to the contract. It did not say the first part.
I believe the intent was for the first part, from what I can understand, but yes, that is another gray area.
From my reading, that didn't say that.
Yeah, and from ESO standpoint, since this wasn't anything that was brought to the board or myself as something to be funded, from, like Barb said, from what's stated in the minutes, it appears to me, and I wasn't at that meeting, I'm just going strictly from the minutes from the work session, that Coquille has assumed full financial responsibility for the consultant process, whether we use stage 2 or not. I do agree with Tara that it should go through ESO's office, all communications. I'm not really sure where we go at this point because they've already signed a contract and are already communicating with Ruth.
That's
So-
wrong. That is
Yeah.
absolutely out of line.
I have a question. Is there a commitment from all parties, all library boards, all library directors to go through this process again with this consultant? Because
No,
this was several
The
years
commissioners overrode our ability to have that say because
Yeah.
Coquille went directly, inappropriately to the commissioners.
So does this contract bind everybody then to participate in this process?
Indirectly, because the Board of Commissioners granted the city of Coquille the authority to do this.
Do we have a copy of this contract to see the language?
That I finally was able to get a copy of the scope of work, but I mean, that's,
all I've received is what's in your packet behind the minute stuff, and that's that email from Teresa that's kind of cut and paste phase 1. That's all ESO's received.
and that's not the scope of work.
Right.
Um,
No, that's bits and pieces of the contract.
Right, and I guess that, if I may, that's my beef. I feel like it's not transparent. And we're getting bits and pieces, Ruth is getting bits and pieces. And I don't, she's getting, I don't know what she's getting, and I have a problem with that.
It's not clear to me what it is that needs to be discovered through this process. Is there something that's been missing in the last 2 years worth of work that needs to
Right.
be?
And none
found
of us have met with Ruth, so
That's part of the thing. is-
we don't really know what Coquille has discussed with them and what Ruth was hired to do. I don't think any of us know the answer to that. Sammy has the scope of work,
That's what I'm trying to.
but
Okay, do you want me to make some copies of this?
yes, please. Yeah.
My city manager also agrees with Tara that this whole process should go through ESO and the board on behalf of abandons.
Yeah, I think that's probably a consensus with the majority of the library directors and city managements, that nobody was made aware of it before that commissioners meeting. I mean, couple of days before, we were given what she was presenting, and that was, I mean, there was no time to meet.
I reached out to one commissioner and expressed my concerns because I felt that they were being put in a position that they perhaps didn't realize that we didn't really know anything about this. So one commissioner knew about my concerns and did their best, I think, to raise some of those concerns. But like, it also makes the commissioners look bad when somebody goes out of their scope. And if the commissioners had said, well, we're not going to take action on this because we think it should go through the CLB, it drew out the process. So I feel like the commissioners kind of tried to do the best they could with what they had. But again, Coquille was out of line. And now we're stuck with something that we know nothing about, and we don't have all the information that we need. So I feel like there's not a lot we can accomplish in today's meeting because we don't have the information to be able to make any decisions except to say that from now on, the consultant deals directly with Stacy, and that's the end of it. And I'm happy if we're at that point of making a motion, I'm happy to make a motion to do that.
Thank you.
Do you have this document, the stuff with Laura?
Tripping on all of my cords over here.
Tara?
You don't have a copy of the scope of work, do you?
No, I do not.
Sammy, do you have it in email?
That's what I'm.
If you do, can you email it to Tara real quick?
I'm sorry that I couldn't be in person. Unfortunately,
that's
I have
okay.
a staff meeting at 2:00, so I may even have to leave a little bit early. I apologize.
Hey, Tara, I just sent it to your coastline email.
I will refresh that. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
By me again, Madam Chair.
Go right ahead. I was reading, sorry.
No, that's all right. I mean, I just would like to say thank you, Coquille, for paying for it, but at the same time, I feel like this affects everyone and I don't like the way.
The way it was done?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that in my personal opinion, no library director gets to try to convince the commissioners to commit ESO money without consulting ESO at all, ever. That's just not appropriate at all. Or city, whichever.
Another concern I
And-
have is that she's wanting to have historical documents, but not copies of the bylaws. Well, our current bylaws are our operating agreements, and like that has to supersede any other request for information. I mean, I'm not saying she can't have historical information, but the current bylaws are what we operate under, and subsequently those have to be taken into account. So that's the other reason that I believe Stacy is the person to be the liaison and not Coquille.
Yeah.
So how do you foresee Stacy wresting control?
Right. That's my concern, is that this is already, the ball's already rolling.
Well, I think that we formally write a letter to Coquille that says this is what the CLB is requiring, and that is that Stacy accept responsibility for that, and it's a requirement. And if we have to, like if they're unwilling to yield to that, then we go with our bylaws to the Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Commissioners can override us if they choose to. But I believe legally they should support us because we are the body that has the ability to direct this work. So I think that it starts with a letter to Coquille that says, moving forward, the ESO is the mandated office and Coquille is not. And if Coquille doesn't yield to that, then we go to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
And there's going to be legal precedence that's going to back that up. Like I said, technically we could go to the commissioners and say, look, you committed us to something that isn't within your purview. I mean, obviously, I don't think that would be our best move if we were playing chess, but I think that we say to Coquille, stop. From now on, all communication goes through Stacy, because otherwise there's going to be an unintended bias towards Coquille, or Coquille controls what information they do and don't get, or whatever. But the ESO is where all of this is housed. So the ESO should be the pivot point for everything.
And I think everybody agrees that the ESO
Oh.
should be the directing.
Yeah, it's the,
So,
yes.
I mean, we start with a letter to the city of Coquille saying, this is the directive from the CLB. And if we get pushback there, then we take that letter to the Board of Commissioners and let it go through that process. But in the meantime, we request that Coquille stands down until we get approval one way or the other from the Board of Commissioners, if Coquille isn't willing to yield when we submit that letter.
Okay.
So do you want are you thinking the threat to go to the commissioners to be included with the first letter, or?
I think we could politely say that if you, this is our course of action. We're requesting that you relinquish control of this to the CLB, to the ESO, and subsequently the CLB. If you don't choose to do that, then we will take this request to the Board of Commissioners. Like, not as a threat, but just, this is our plan of action.
This is how
The
it's gonna work.
steps. Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
plan.
And I think the letter has to come from the board and not from Stacy. Like, it's
Correct.
the board chair
Yeah,
signs the letter
yeah.
and sends
I'll
it.
sign it. Yeah, no problem. But we need to have, it needs to come from an address, maybe the ESO's address or something like
Yes.
that. But it
Yes.
can come
Or-
from.
Or
No,
it
that's
could be
fine. If we
sent,
just do
it could be sent from email. I mean, it could just be an email with a red receipt to the city manager and the mayor. Like, I don't know that it has to be a formal letter, or the formal letter can be followed up after the email. But because I think time is of the essence, the further, like you said, the ball is already rolling. How do we stop it? And I feel like it's not a
Yeah.
little baseball. It's a giant, one of those big, huge, we used to have at school. And we don't want that ball to roll people over, and it's already doing that.
To me, it's kind of more like a snowball that started small and was rolling downhill.
And is now an avalanche. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it could be.
Yes.
Okay, so anybody else want to jump right in here? I know you had something you wanted to say. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I'm on the library board, and I think quite frankly, before you send a letter out, you should double check at least. Maybe talk directly with Teresa. She can provide you with the documentations that you're requesting.
We've already asked for those documents.
Et cetera, and directly contact her and get those and review them.
The thing is though, is that the contract is not between Teresa and Ruth, it's between the city and Ruth. So
With the copy of that contract, you do not know that. You're making an awful lot of suppositions here.
No, this comes from Teresa. We've received that information from Teresa.
And Teresa
Yeah, we
hasn't
agree.
given us documents that we have requested.
So if I have not read your bylaws, but let me ask the question. If a member, Tokyo, I use as an example, objects to a decision that you made, don't you need to listen to that objection and address it,
We did.
as opposed to simply taking your report and saying this is it? Nobody can argue it one way or the other.
The report, you mean the recommendation for the funding, is that the report you're referring to?
Right. And that was a recommendation, but did all of the libraries agree to that?
And
No,
We don't need a majority consensus from the directors group.
we had a majority, it was not unanimous.
Ooh, that's what I mean, unanimous consensus from,
I think the step back from that, the point here is that the libraries involved are being excluded from this discussion with group that may or may not determine what happens.
As I understand it, though, Ruth was going to be in contact with all of the
We
libraries.
didn't even know what she was being asked to
Okay,
do.
so
And so that's,
why not take that at that
my
first and see what she was asked to do? Teresa's trying to be as absolutely transparent as possible with regards to this. So if there's a
No,
point
she's
you
not.
don't know. I think
She's
in
not.
fairness, you need to, okay, if you have an argument with regards to what Teresa's being transparent or not, ask her.
We've asked for documents that she has not provided to us.
And she's trying to be as transparent as possible. So if there's a point that you think is hidden, ask her.
That's where going to the ESO takes that out of
correct.
the equation. And
The ESO is the county governing office.
Okay.
So the ESO takes care of all things countywide so that no one library has control over one thing. That's why the CLB is asking that goes through the ESO, because we're an unbiased party. Our funding comes out before the money is put into the pot for the distribution formula. So that's why they're requesting that it go through ESO, because then it's being ran by an unbiased party.
Can I speak?
Sure.
I'm from Powers, and historically, through all this process, we have said no at every turn to this formula because we're losing money. Coquille is losing much more, but we are so minimal already, and you folks are just cutting us back and back and back. And we just felt we've been sort of disregarded in the process. I have some remarks I'd like to read into the minutes when it's appropriate for me to do that.
Is it pertinent to this particular part of who controls or who is in charge of the consultant and who the consultant reports to, which is what we're discussing right now? Thank you. We will give you time to talk. Anybody, Kathy, you have something to say? No? Letty?
I see this as attachment A, but we don't have when it's attached. Who is that? Which would be the contract?
This was what Teresa sent over when Sammy asked for the scope of work for the contract between Ruth and the city of Coquille.
So there's more information to be had about the contract per se.
We don't know. Yeah, we would assume so. Yeah, we would assume so.
I did think of something. Teresa at the workshop felt that the formula was not fair. And she had issues which the allocation committee actually went over and addressed amongst the allocation committee. And made a decision that what she wanted, the difference was so slight that it wasn't necessary. So every time she has wanted something, we obliged to look at it, as we did in all libraries. This is supposed to be a fair distribution of money for everybody, and it's set up with facts. And I don't know how else we can be fairer. And somebody in the past clued me in that we were supposed to do this formula from the inside, since our county is so different than any other county. We don't run from somebody controlling all the libraries. Each library controls themselves. You know, I'm sorry that Powers is losing money. You know, I actually know the amount, and I believe it could be raised by a GoFundMe-like account and even make more money. But that's my personal feeling.
So, any other discussion of Tara's proposal to talk to Coquille, the city of Coquille, and see about getting the contract for the consultant into the ESO's purview? Any other comments there?
I'd just like to say, I think it's essential. And I had some of the same thoughts. I was just thinking on it, and I think that's the excellence, that's what needs to happen, because it is CLB's responsibility to do that sort of thing through the ESO, versus an individual library within, to be in charge of that contract. And it's great that she found the, this possible solution to what we're looking at. We've tried and tried and tried. The directors have beat this horse dead, I don't know how many times already. So I think it's very essential, and I'm fully on board with that process.
So,
I have a question. Oh, I just have a question, I guess. Is that fit here? And Bruce Metz comes back and says, what you have is great. I mean,
yeah,
what do we do then? Do we just keep? What do we do?
We go back to the commissioners and report that and try to get the formula passed for the next two to 3 years.
Okay, I just want to know, I mean, are we just going to keep hiring consultants and?
No,
back and
this
forth
is
forever?
it.
I mean,
Well, ultimately, it will be the commissioner's
well, I
decision,
understand,
but
I understand that, but I guess,
hopefully,
you know, I mean,
the reality is that there's this much money and you want to change how you distribute it. Somebody's gonna lose money and somebody's
Yeah.
gonna make money, and there's just no way to get around.
and ultimately.
No consultant in the world is gonna be able to create more money out of thin air.
Exactly. And ultimately, we're all, I mean, as we've discussed multiple times, the dollar just doesn't go very as far anymore. So every library regardless is gonna have to go back internally and figure some things out. Because even if you get, you know, $10,000 more, it's just not gonna go anywhere.
It would for us.
Well, ultimately, but I mean, still,
It's not
It
a lot, that's why I'm here.
everything else is
We're
going up.
already minimal. but
No, I
we're
understand
still
that,
cutting
but what
it
I'm
down.
saying is that everybody, you know, I mean, it's not just, this isn't the end all be all. The formula's not gonna solve the fact that prices keep going up. That, you know, everything
We're already
It's working
operating in a
against us.
deficit, yeah.
as far as, you know, and if any, I mean. if
Personnel
anything else-
material will continue to go up.
And if anything passes ever in this county for tax wise, it's going to impact the library district, which means our percentage is gonna go down because we're gonna be in depression.
Yeah.
So I mean, it just, I feel like, yes, this is a big important part, but we also need to take a step back and say, okay, well, this isn't gonna be the ultimate solving a big problem.
Mhm.
We still have all these other things, other outside things affecting us, so. Which sucks.
Well, I think the process is very important because what if another library after this process, they don't like the results, says, oh, maybe Bandit would like to do the same thing. We're gonna have another consultant.
Right.
For a different library and redo it again. I mean, where does this stop? We need to have a process that is according to our bylaws.
And that's the process that we did do. And we've spent the better part of 10 years working on the allocation formula. The day I started on the board, there was discussion about the allocation formula. That was 10 years ago. And yet here we are still fighting over how to do it. And I agree with Sammy. So we have this, you know, this person, and then when some other library doesn't like their choice, then they go and find another consultant. And that's why I feel like it was very wrong to take it directly to the Board of Commissioners. Because so then the next library doesn't like it and they don't think they were heard, and then they, you know, stonewall, and then it's another 20 years and we still use the same formula that some people still aren't happy with right now.
Yeah, that is the issue, is that this body didn't have a chance to discuss or even hear about this before it was at the commissioners' meeting, and that is where it should have been to begin with. So we could have made a decision to consult with this individual or not. That just didn't happen, and that is a problem. That's because then you do get these individual libraries that might choose to do the same thing.
Miscellaneous question. I saw that the commissioners had this distribution formula on their agenda yesterday. Do we know what they talked about?
No, I wasn't aware that it was on I'm wondering if
I would speculate it was just confirming what they did in the work session, because a work session isn't necessarily the end all be all. Like in this case, they did take action, but they don't have to. So it was probably a report out on the work session. I don't know that because I didn't, but from board experience, that would be likely, is that they had that opportunity to report out in a full non-workshop setting, that this is what we decided in the workshop and this is how it's moving forward. We should double check that, but that would be my speculation.
okay, I will request those minutes from Bobby as soon as she has them done up. Another question from my office is that wasn't able to be discussed in regards to this consultant. How are her results, whether it's stating that it's this, she agrees with what we've done, or she comes up with something completely different? How do those results, how do we use those results? So is it going to be, say she comes up with something completely different? Are we then gonna have the board a conversation over
The results?
Yeah, whether we go with it or we,
Yes.
okay. I
Well,
just want that to be,
it seems that since the funding formula committee was most enmeshed in it and had the most detail, that it should go to them before it comes to this board to make a decision. I mean, we could reject what the
Okay.
consultant said.
Right.
that's what I was wanting to clarify.
And of course, I won't be here, but I would expect that the funding formula committee would say, oh, wow, we had a aha moment because she found something we didn't think about and we agree with her. Or, you know, we looked at all of that before and this really isn't making any difference. So
Okay.
I would respect what the funding formula committee has done. And I do respect what they've done.
There's some possibility that some of the committee members may be unable or unwilling to continue on.
It's possible.
Arms may need to be twisted.
You don't want another 10-year commitment. No one has looked at every one of these committees for 10 years. To say that I'm tired of it. You're tired of dreaming of public.
I think that it would be wise for, the Coos Library Board members to see or hear the whole report, but I agree that the committee could discuss that a whole lot further and give us a whole lot more insight because they're so intimately.
So, other discussion here?
In regards to that committee, I'm pretty confident that Linda Kirk, if she didn't formally resign from that committee, is not serving on that committee any longer. She's got some health challenges that have left her resigning from most of her public obligations.
Kind of what I was thinking too. I'm sorry, Letty.
My question is, and maybe, I'm sorry, I was late a few minutes, but maybe you talk about this. My question is, what is the goal for her to come up? Is she supposed to come up with a number where nobody loses money? Is this?
That's not possible.
Okay.
Unless we stay with exactly what we have.
Right.
Is it?
That's part of the problem, but that's my
Okay.
problem, is knowing what.
Is it
What is the goal?
because, I saw that she sent the initial 1992 arrangement paperwork, and, so I don't know if it's a possibility that some people want that to stay on, or is that even a possibility that we go back to what it was, because that way libraries somehow don't lose money. I know it's a.
Well, that was the master plan, she said, and that was one of my points, is that she didn't send her the up-to-date one that's
Right.
legally binding, and I don't care what the old one says at this point. The new one's the one you have to work off of. But that, I think, has the same percentages, both percentages, I think, are the same. It's just some of the wording was different in the master plan.
Okay.
So priorities, I think we had.
Which results in no change from what we have right now.
Right.
Correct.
Which has been the problem for those libraries that find that their way that is divided up is not fair to them. So you've got, this isn't fair to us, the change isn't fair to us. And I think maybe she's supposed to find a middle ground.
Well, that's to divide the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, divide the baby.
I'm just wondering if her goal is to try to find a way to spread the money in a way that nobody gets a lot more money and somebody else, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to understand. If her goal is to try to spread it in a way that there are no major changes for some libraries. And yeah, I know.
Completely unfair. to
I
do that,
know,
that we are where we were.
Then we're right back in.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's part of what she's supposed to be doing to try to keep everyone happy, but that's not gonna work, because Brandon's not gonna be happy.
No.
And Lakeside is definitely not gonna be happy, but I'm just wondering if she comes up with a number where the libraries that are still losing money she comes up with a number that is similar to that. What are we doing then? Are we going to keep what we
I don't think we can
are
know
we
what,
working on, or are we gonna go with that?
I don't think we can know that yet.
Yeah.
We don't know what she's supposed to do, but whatever formula is presented, it has to be based on rational.
Okay.
I mean, it can't just be, oh, well, we think you need some more, so we're gonna do this. Yeah, there has
That
to
was
be.
the whole point, that the commissioners charged
Yes.
the committee, the CLB, to come up with something that was based in absolute verifiable factual information that anybody could go on the state library website and verify. The, statistics, and we spent a lot of time with some good input from Coquille on what kinds of services we include in that evaluation. But, I did see where Teresa felt that usage should not be what the thing should be based, the formula should be based on. So I have to say, I'm nonplussed by that. I don't know what verifiable factual information
Is what?
would be used if it's not the usage and work that each library does to provide their services. I'm confused by that.
Okay.
I mean, if we can be shown.
The quick is, we don't know.
I thought that maybe I was missing something and, you,
Teresa has asked for a second opinion.
okay.
Basically.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
understand, that she's just asked for the second opinion, but I wasn't sure about the goal, so.
And it should, the reason for the consultant is that they are outside looking in. So they haven't lived with this for all this time, however long Carol's lived with it.
Could be a good thing and a scary thing at the same time.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the whole point of this discussion is that if the ESO's the one paying for it, then we feel more confident that we're
Not
doing
paying for it.
And not paying for it, but is doing that.
In charge.
Yeah, then we have more confidence that we'll get a less biased.
And one last question, is this only phase one that's what's
Correct.
approved? There's no phase two approved, just.
No, from the attachment A, it says the goal is to ask, ascertain what phase two of the project would entail and the cost. So I haven't read all of it, but just from the goal, it looks like this is just like an information grab for her to evaluate and then see if she can even help us with the phase two. So it doesn't sound like we're gonna get any numbers or percentages or anything out of phase one. It's just her doing an evaluation to see, that's just what I'm gathering from the goal that's listed.
Okay.
That's kind of what I understood.
And fundamentally, I don't have a problem with the second opinion at all, because you're right, there might be an aha moment.
Mhm.
I just don't like the way it's happening.
Yeah, nobody does. Well, almost nobody does.
So should we have a motion
Yes,
that we vote on as to the letter or written?
yes. I was waiting to see if anybody had more discussion here. Tara, you want to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we direct the board chair to draft a letter to Coquille requesting that
And that's
the ES, pardon me?
The city.
Yes, the city of Coquille, that the project be housed within the ESO with Stacy Nix being the liaison to the board.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Could I ask a question before we vote?
Sure.
The final decision would be with the Board of Commissioners. They are the governing body. Not Coquille, not us, we're advisory to them, but we've been charged with certain responsibilities. So I'm wondering if this letter really should go to the VOC with copies to Coquille. I don't know, what does everybody think about that?
I think it should go to the Board of Commissioners at the same time it goes to Coquille.
Okay.
But the address to the city of Coquille or?
Yeah, address to which one, or simultaneously?
I'd address it to both of them.
That.
I
work for
can
you?
modify my motion that we send a letter to both the city of Coquille and the Board of Commissioners requesting that the process be housed within the ESO.
Second? Yep, still?
I agree.
Okay,
It's
we
a
have
friendly
a
amendment.
motion and a second on the motion and the amendment to the motion. All in favor?
I,
Motion passes unanimously to those who are in attendance.
So you're gonna draft that letter, or who's drafting the letter?
Barbara.
I'll go home and start writing, but I'll send it out before, to everybody before. Just so that so that everybody sees. that I did.
Thanks for doing drafting.
Well, and feel free to highlight all the mistakes and send me back other ideas, but yes, I will draft a letter. How, yeah, we'll be polite. Okay, any other discussion here? Should we move on? Oh, yes, I am so sorry. Well, that, yeah, go ahead.
My turn?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Your agenda, if you need to have a public comment section on the agenda every month. I think you should.
Okay.
Also, if you had a paragraph on the same page as the agenda, telling what the number is to dial into for, remote access.
Okay.
And an address or an email contact for, submitting written comments.
Okay.
That's an easy thing to do. I used to keep, minutes. I was secretary for the health district for years. And we do that on every agenda, and it doesn't, not everybody comes.
Sure.
Or you always need it, but it's good to have folks to know what their access
Okay.
is. I didn't know what number to dial in today if I hadn't come. I could have gone to the library, but powers won't work.
Yeah, it's all
That-
posted online.
That is helpful.
Yeah.
It really is helpful. And you may have more folks attending with this budget process revived now. That's one of the reasons for my comments. I know you folks already outvoted us. We've kind of given up. Coquille's breathed life into the process again, so here I am.
Would you repeat your name again?
Sandy
Thank you.
Stopper. Thank you. Several reasons. I went to the last, to the Board of Commissioners meeting when the Coquille contingency was there. A lot of others were there too from other libraries, just wondering what's going on and is this really going to happen? Are we really going to lose money? And the commissioners obviously said, well, we'll approve the first year, but let's take a second look at it. And I'm really glad we did. And they come down to the same thing. You folks have done so much work. And I know it's difficult, but I'm glad we're taking a second look. Because we need the money. Another thing that really alarmed me is in this handout, you start talking about library closures. Okay, well, how far down the line, how much are you going to cut eventually? We don't ever want to be in a position where we are facing a closure. Now, let me read I'd like to read them into the minutes as well as you have in front of you as well. My comments today relate to the proposed 3-year budget distribution plans for all Coos County libraries. I know that the first year of the plan has already been approved by the Coos County Commissioners and that a consultant will be hired to evaluate the remaining 2 years of the plan. And I assumed as well that the consultant would be reporting to you folks, so that may not happen. That's another reason I came here to this body. I cannot stress enough that any plan that leads to the discussion of library closures is wrong. All libraries named in the Library Service District Master Plan of 1992 deserve to be fully funded to maintain the basic services described in the master plan. Powers has always provided these basic services with just enough funding to maintain. We do not have the staff or the physical space to expand or host meetings, events, or large classes. Your proposed funding formula is punishing us for remaining small. And we believe that we serve a greater population than your numbers indicate, possibly several hundred more than the 860 number used. Commissioner Sweet recommended this inequity in funding for small libraries at the April 18th Commissioners meeting. He suggested and we agree that fixed costs need to be addressed first at all sites. Salaries, benefits, insurance, and so forth. A funding formula can then be used for the remaining budget areas. And please refer to the master plan, page 14, quote, principles operating in the derivation of budgets are the following, end quote. Number 3, possible equalization monies sufficient to give all libraries an adequate level of service. Unless circumstances are unforeseen, the only reason a Coos County library might be forced to close is because this body has not recommended the necessary funding for it to be able to provide basic services. Hopefully, the consultant hired to review all of the above will recommend a plan we can all support. Thank you for the time and effort you have put into this process. It has not been easy. I will be glad to help in any way possible and give you my contact number.
Thank you.
Also, I'm glad you pointed out we are advisory. The Coos County Commissioners are kind of taking a little heat for making the decision they did, but it's their right to do that. Our city council overrides some of our decisions because we're just an advisory board as well. The buck stops with the elected officials, and that's our Coos County board. And we have to, if we feel they haven't heard something, I think it's just fine that we bring information to them, even though the process may not have been followed exactly.
But by the same token, their advisory group that is part of what the voters approve needs to be brought into the process, an important one, especially like this, which we are not. Have not.
You're right, but so am I. They have the final say because they are the elected officials.
They absolutely do.
And they spend the money.
So it sounds like what you're asking for is a factor that includes a baseline of service. Is that an FTE, a certain FTE that every library should
The
have?
same way small schools are funded in that way also. Powers are, we have a very small school, but we get the basic funding we need to pay teachers and maintain our building and our facilities. And I don't know what kind of, but it allows for that. The funding we get allows for that. I don't know what funding formula you folks have used. If it allows for that basic level of service for all libraries, maintain the building, or the city does. We pay the salaries and the benefits. That's basic. We don't mess with that. Then you go on to the other services and programs and other things you can do. Then your formula does equal that.
What we were looking at is state standards for all public libraries and has different levels of service and, and that's exactly what those standards do is say to be a library, you must be open this many hours, you must have this many staff, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we were looking at because it's a state standard, not something unique to any particular library or area.
Well, I know you have the standard, but are you providing the funding to meet that standard?
And that's the goal. Yeah. And there is, our document about closure of libraries provides for a way for a library facing closure to be taken under the wing of some other library, which would then reduce the administrative costs of that particular library, and the money they get could go into frontline staff and books and so on. I think that was the intent of that, which was approved by, can't remember who, this body. Not sure about the commissioners.
I know library closure sounds like you just close the doors.
Well, no, the master plan, it describes rather than close is how to restructure things. And that's the absolute, we discussed the
I
absolute.
don't know how you
last resort.
restructure a library without books and people.
No. What we're saying is that like, if these powers is an example, if there's a problem and they couldn't continue. Or whatever, X, Y, Z. Myrtle Point, it becomes a branch of Myrtle Point. Myrtle Point takes on the financial dealings as far as cutting the checks, cutting out a lot of the costs that Powers bears now, so that the money that Powers gets continues to keep the library open with books and people.
So the contract would be from the Coos County Commissioners with the city of Myrtle Point to maintain the Powers Library.
No, it would be between Powers and Myrtle Point, for instance. It would be a way to eliminate some of the duplicity, to save money to keep the library open.
It's like the last measure. We hope that that never has to happen to any library.
Well, that's, you know,
Let me use the example of Coos Bay and North Bend. If Coos Bay does something who can't carry on, we ask North Bend to take on the Coos Bay Library's break. What would happen then is instead of having two directors, it becomes one director, savings. Instead of two finance departments cutting checks, it becomes one, the savings. See what I mean? How it takes out some of that duplicate effort, but maintains collection frontline staff.
we have 3 people. I mean.
No, I understand it, but I'm just trying to give you an
It's
example
just
of
not
what
even at that.
it's measure of last resort, a way to keep the library open.
Yeah, but because you bring it up with this process, I was thinking about that.
I understand,
Here.
and it was tasked to have a definition of what last resort would be essentially, and it comes right out of the master plan that was.
I don't know how you define basic services.
Well, that's-
like that.
That's
The state standards, state standards, it's clearly.
I read that in there, and but if we don't have money to pay the people to, you know, to keep the library open, that's
No, I
basically what our costs are.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to explain, what that discussion was as far as being able to keep the library open,
Right.
just structured different.
Yeah, the administrative structure that is being duplicated all across with every library right now that is pretty time consuming stuff. Reporting to the state and dealing with the finances, creating the budget, monitoring the budget. So it's not the desirable way to have a library, but it's a way to keep it simple.
Did you have more? No. Okay, shall we move on then?
I
All right.
have to jump off, so I'm sorry, but I'll look forward to the minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to ESO report.
Yes, so.
All right, so, we're doing good in ESO, knock on wood, still fully staffed. Yeah, everything's going great. I have included in the packet the ILL stats, and you can see that especially this last month, like the graph is far exceeding anything that we've had this past year. My ILL technicians is great. Outreach, she's plugging along. She visits all of the nursing homes in the area, takes a little mobile library to them, has satellite carts throughout the county, for people that can get out of their house, but they can't get all the way to a library. So it's just little rural stands where she drops off, books that they can keep and refreshes that monthly. As well as books by mail. She handles all of the outreach for the, people of Coos County that are homebound and they can't make it to a library, so that they still get the services, that the libraries provide. Uh-oh. Okay. I think we're good. Okay. Yeah, and then courier services going great. 6 days a week, they're shipping books between all the different libraries. Digital content comparison, that's where we have all of our databases, that ESO provides for the whole county. We had one change that hasn't been made on here yet for Learning Express and Jobs and Careers, which is basically people can go in and take practice tests for the LSAT, the SAT, the ACT, whatever. And there's different learning lessons they can do. They can build resumes on there. Any military tests, they can take practice tests. And the state's always covered that for us. In October, the state decided we don't want to cover that anymore. So we discussed it in the directors group and we decided that just the resume builder alone that it has on there is very essential to our community. We don't have anything else like it. So we went ahead and added that as a paid database that ESO covers for the whole county. So that's really the only difference there. Digital books are still, everybody loves their digital audiobooks and ebooks, so those are holding strong. The last thing on the ESO report is our current budget as of April 30th. And we are 83% elapsed. We have 71% of our personnel services have been used, so we're under budget there. And then our materials and services are slightly over, but we do pay a lot of our contractual services up front at the beginning of the year, so that it's been slowly catching back up. But yeah, and that's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions. All right.
Okay, director's report. Christine?
Which is busy with summer reading like everybody else. Getting ready for that. And then, we're working with South Coast Early Learning Hub and on a possible grant to do some early literacy programming, which would be super helpful. I'm a children's librarian, so anything that helps that program. I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is back to the other thing to get on the agenda for the commissioners meeting in November. How early do you have to? That's a 6-month thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I will email Bobby, which is the administrator for the commissioners, and see how early we can schedule that. I'm not sure how far she books out.
Summer reading fun. I've been working we had 5 years ago, I wrote a grant to fund 2/3 of Dolly Parton in our county. That unfortunately is expired, but I am hot on the lead of another funding to cover the county, the portion that's not being covered at this point, so.
And that's a book giveaway too.
Yeah, you get, all children that sign up get a book mailed to them until they graduate at age 5.
Once a month, right?
Once a month, yes. So hopefully that funding source will come through because I know starting to dwindle, our accounts are starting to dwindle. Hopefully I can get that wrapped up with the next one. That's happening. Other than that, busy.
Well, summer reading, one man show over here, so summer reading is all I can think about, but there's a lot of other stuff. Started Bookies at Night last night. It was so much fun. We decided to do mocktails because it's at night. So we did mocktails. It was super fun and people just posted and people were just posting on Facebook. Why didn't you say anything? I'm like, I posted it on Facebook. You didn't see it. But so we're trying to come up with some kind of programming every Tuesday. So like Library Tuesday. So having some kind of activity like cookies at night on a Tuesday, then trying to come up with something as cooking, different things. This month, we started with cookies at night. The next month, hopefully we'll add more. And hopefully by the end of summer, we're gonna have an activity every Tuesday at the library. We also been gifted by Amy, not gifted, she's gonna let us use it, but she's gonna send us Legos for the kids. Apparently, she got a lot of them donated, so she said that she was gonna weigh them, send them to us, and hopefully the kids can use it during the summer, which is the perfect time. And just we have a few new kids that maybe they've been in the area for a long time, but they just started coming to the library. And we're just trying to come up with more activities to give grandpas and grandmas a break during the summer. So that's gonna be an interesting thing, because now staff members, I'm kind of stretched thing while I work at the library, but I'm trying to come up with something that different staff members would be okay doing. Like Thursdays, we have a guy that likes games. So I was thinking maybe we can do game night with the kids
And, you know, he can lead that because he's, you know, into that kind of stuff, and we're trying to incorporate more stuff into the programming, so that way it's kind of budget efficient, and while the library is open, we can have some activities, but, other than that, summer reading is taking kind of 90%. But it's going well.
Joni?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, the Cruise Art Museum, they reached out to me and they wanted to partner with us and do an art cart where they would provide 50 kits per week for July and August, which is going to be awesome. Give out kits to the kids. Our friends group purchased a storage shed for us, which will be made into possibly a bookstore / maybe meeting room. We can have kids programming out there. We received the Pilco grant and received $2,000 worth of books, which was awesome, except for I had to catalog a whole lot of books. The townwide garage sale we'll be having on June 1st, and the 25th annual Tour de France bike ride will be coming up June 15th, if anyone is interested. And we are also gearing up for summer reading, and thankful for the performers that we will be receiving. And that's about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you want to share anything from Copial events? I guess they're gearing up for summer reading also.
Nothing. I'm not aware of any are expanding. We've got our evening program already in place. And so we're struggling to maintain that. Friends with Library is stepping in as much as possible. And also the staff has been bringing some volunteer time activities taking place after the library proper close. The book club is taking place. We have a writing group. So if you want to learn how to write, and if you want to, whether it is a report or whether it's your novel type of thing. And so a lot of things are going on with regards to that. We have posted on the City of Coquille's website on a regular basis the events and the dates that they are scheduled for. Our library of things has expanded beyond the cake utensils or molds or whatever. I don't do it, so I'm not too sure. But we've added seeds to it now. And there's been conversation with regards to the landscaping at the new location and taking out the ornamental standard stuff and changing it over to a native planting, which goes along with the city's a dedication to bring in more local and more precise. We've been working with Darcy, I'm gonna mispronounce her last name, I think it's Rayek over at Stillwater Nursery, to identify plants that are unique to Coquille. What you can grow over in North Bend and Coos Bay does not apply. We are inland, and there's enough of a difference there, and a number of us have been already planting things from Stillwater, and we found from our own experience what grows in Coos Bay is not necessarily grown in Coquille, and actually it can guarantee a death of the plants. So why bother spending the time and the money to do that? So we're trying to narrow things down, but that's going to be the research with regards to the planting is being done by the Garden Club Pollinator Committee. And the funding is hopefully going to be obtained through grants. And Teresa's been writing an awful lot of grants to fund relocation and the renovation and remodeling with regards to the new location.
Are you on, still on schedule to open in the fall, is it September, somewhere in there?
I'm gonna say the fall.
Yeah.
Yay. We are technically on schedule. But we're always still crossing our fingers that that works. Type of thing. So hopefully this fall, we will be do the relocation. The landscaping though is going to have to take probably, I'm gonna say the next year. Because the plantings have to occur in the fall. And we're running late enough with regards to selecting the plants that it's more than likely not gonna be able to get the plants. From what I understand, the process involves you place an order and the suppliers can deliver those roughly 3 to 4 months later. And we've already lost the time frame to place the order and have those plants arrive in time for fall planting. And since we're heading, we're narrowing ourselves with regards to the natives. It'll probably spend the winter, actually for the next year. Heavy load layer mulch, keep the weeds down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And a lot of the funding with regards to that is gonna be coming from grants written by the Garden Club. Yeah. So, yeah, we're, it's part of the city's, intent to become a bee city USA.
Very cool.
Sandy, did you have anything you wanted to add to what Joni had to say?
No, she covered it very well. We are hosting the summer lunch program.
Oh, that's right.
The van comes to the library. The kids don't, usually it's nice enough, they stay outside. But Joni makes sure that is coordinated and happens just about every day, 4 days a week. I think. That goes on for quite a while.
Thank you, Sandy. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's a big one for you. We decided not to put the fire siren on. And too many fires on summer. People get in.
Yeah.
So people had to remember it's noon and the band's coming with the food without the siren.
Like a heart attack in town.
Right. All right,
Anybody else? Next meeting?
next
We don't-
meeting, we don't,
Usually do that, but it's on the agenda.
yeah. I don't, we probably don't have any need to meet between now and October-ish, whenever we get that report back.
We can always set up a meeting. if
Yeah.
we have to.
I do have a question though.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you decided about the consultant. Well, the consultant will not come to this body to talk about anything with you folks. Is that right?
We hope they will.
We don't know.
The idea was, the verbal, quote was, Ruth would come to every library and meet with the director and the city manager and meet with, this board. And I would imagine ESO, because we're all participants in the county library system. That would only be the fair thing to do.
I'm assuming that would happen.
So
Was it?
she would have to meet Joni
Right.
and, Dora, can't remember your
Lenny.
lady.
I was under the impression that it was only 2 meetings, one with the directors, and I thought it was over Zoom,
Yes,
And
one
then-
meeting over Zoom.
and then only one in person. That's what my understanding was,
Yes.
but.
And the board of commissioners also wanted to, meet with Ruth at least once. John Sweet was very stern about that. His comment was, are you sure you want to do this, Teresa? You could get less money going your way. But, you know, she doesn't have the last say.
Well, and I think the ESO office needs to see that contract.
Yeah.
To know exactly
Yeah.
what the parameters are for reporting out in fun times.
How will you disseminate the information if she's ongoing for the next month or two before your next meeting? How will you be updated on anything that's being discussed or proposed?
Hopefully Stacy will continue to contact us through our emails.
Well, but that will all rely upon.
Yeah, it's kind of all up in the air right now, because I don't know, I don't know what the contract is. So,
Yeah, since Coquille's the contracting entity at this point, we don't have a lot of control over that.
right.
But I'm assuming if you have information you can share, you will.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
We can't discuss it because of public meeting law, we would have to be but we can get the information. Like, we can't have a big discussion on email.
Yeah.
But we can get the information and then have a meeting that's open to the public to then discuss it.
Can you have a meeting sooner than your next scheduled one if needed?
yeah. We just have to give the proper notice for a public meeting. And ours, we meet quarterly, but we oftentimes meet more often if we need to and skip some if we don't have anything that needs to be discussed with the board. So
We just have to abide by Oregon public
Right.
meeting laws. I write better than I talk. But we can meet as long as we have the.
Yeah.
We're just all anxious to find out what will happen.
Well, believe me, we are too.
Big collective we there.
did you have a question?
No comment.
Okay.
If you look at, Teresa's, distribution update report, of May 15th, which is included in the packet here. Page 2 says that the consultant facilitates a Zoom session with the principal parties to hear out various perspectives concerning the allocation of the district funds. District agents organize the principals to attend. District and consultant and city confer on invitees. Also, consultant meets with the principals on the district agent coordinates date and invitation and provides a suitable location. And finally, the consultant provides a recommendation.
Mhm.
So we'll be contacted by the consultant.
But I think it was our understanding that the recommendation of phase 1 was whether to go on to phase 2 or not.
No, it says consultant provides a recommendation as to phase 2.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
what we just said.
specified.
Correct. Phase 2 is not a definite thing at this point.
Right.
Decides that, phase 2, sorry, last question, I promise. Who decides if there's gonna be a phase 2? If ESO takes over the contract and,
It would depend on what Ruth reports.
okay,
If she deems that her services are not necessary, that she would basically come up with the same conclusion, then there won't be a phase 2. But ultimately, I believe it would be our board would review that, the commissioners possibly.
okay,
We don't really know until we know what,
okay, because I was
Yeah.
wondering if it goes straight
Yeah.
to the commissioners instead of going to the CLB, since this was something that was arranged after this was approved, I'm just wondering if it's really out there, commissioners have all the power to do this, or is there a way that can be reviewed before it goes there? But I guess we don't know that, so. That's fine.
There is a good deal that we do not know.
yeah.
And the commissioners do have the power.
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
Yeah, they have the power to do anything they want when they
But
want
I
to.
don't think
So,
they would want it to bypass the spot.
Okay, that makes.
no, historically, the Board of Commissioners has leaned towards the CLB as to what, because they're not part of, our process. Yes, they're the governing board. Yes, they make the decisions, but they do lean heavily on the CLB to say, well, what's your opinion? What's your recommendation? What do you see fit before they make any big rulings? Because that's why they have the board, is to kind of do the work for them and then present them with,
It
the
makes
options
sense,
and-
but I got
yeah.
asked that question and now I was like, oh my gosh, I better ask it. Okay, thank you. That's great.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay, during this meeting at 2:16 PM.
Perfect.
Did you guys look at me? I'm sitting in the dark. I'll have the board. One of you is the moderator.
Oh, no.
As soon as I can, you guys. I love it.